Welcome back to Crime Unveiled. Tonight, we delve into a case that chills to the bone, a story etched in the annals of American crime, the DeFeo Murders. On a seemingly ordinary November night in 1974, the quiet suburban community of Amityville, Long Island, was shattered by an unspeakable act of violence. 6 members of the DeFeo family were found dead in their beds, victims of a methodical execution. This is not just a recounting of the horrific events, but an exploration of the circumstances, the psychological factors, and the lingering questions that continue to shroud this case in mystery. We begin not with the carnage, but with the backdrop, the seemingly normal life that preceded the tragedy, to understand what could possibly lead to such a devastating outcome. The DeFeo family, seemingly an embodiment of the American dream, resided in a large Dutch colonial house at 112 Ocean Avenue. Ronald DeFeo Jr., a successful car salesman, his wife Louise, and their 5 children, Ronald Jr., Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew, formed a picture of suburban normalcy. However, beneath the surface, there were whispers of dysfunction, accounts of a volatile patriarch, and simmering tensions within the family. These glimpses into their private lives, though seemingly insignificant at first glance, form crucial pieces of the puzzle we aim to assemble. We'll examine these dynamics carefully, attempting to piece together the complex family portrait before the horrific events of November 13th. This detailed approach is essential to grasping the full context of this disturbing case. Neighbors described a seemingly ordinary family, active in the community, children attending school, the parents involved in local affairs. There were occasional glimpses of Ronald Sr.'s temper, outbursts witnessed by neighbors and reported by family members. The accounts paint a picture of a man who ruled his household with an iron fist, demanding obedience and respect. While such behavior is undoubtedly unpleasant, the question remains: could these reported incidents of domestic strife foreshadow the horrific events that unfolded? We will explore the potential link between the family dynamics and the ultimate tragedy. 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr., known as Butch, was the eldest child, a young man described as troubled and prone to outbursts of anger himself. He reportedly had a volatile relationship with his father, marked by frequent arguments and escalating tensions. Butch's behavior, coupled with the existing familial strains, raises questions about his potential role in the unfolding tragedy. While it's important to avoid premature conclusions, exploring his personality and behavior provides critical context in understanding the events of that fateful night. We'll analyze Butch's background, his relationship with his family, and his actions leading up to the murders. The events leading up to the night of the murders remain somewhat murky. Accounts vary, with some reports suggesting a relatively calm evening, while others hint at escalating arguments within the DeFeo household. Reconstructing the precise timeline of that evening is crucial to unraveling the sequence of events that culminated in such unimaginable violence. We will meticulously examine the available information, including witness testimonies and police reports, to paint as clear a picture as possible of the hours leading up to the tragedy. In the days leading up to the murders, reports indicate that tensions within the family had reached a boiling point. Arguments between Ronald Sr. and Butch were reportedly more frequent and intense. Understanding the nature of these disagreements is vital to our investigation. Were these arguments simply the culmination of long-standing tensions, or was there a specific trigger, a catalyst that pushed the situation over the edge? These are questions we'll explore in detail as we delve deeper into the dynamics within the DeFeo family. The investigation that followed the discovery of the bodies would uncover a scene of unimaginable horror. 6 members of the DeFeo family lay dead in their beds, each a victim of close-range gunshot wounds. The methodical nature of the killings, the sheer brutality of the act, shocked the community and left investigators grappling with a crime scene that defied easy explanation. The sheer scale of the violence demands careful examination, forcing us to confront the darkest aspects of human behavior. In the aftermath of the murders, the small community of Amityville, Long Island, would be forever scarred. The idyllic image of suburban tranquility was shattered, replaced by the chilling specter of violence and unanswered questions. The DeFeo murders became a symbol of the fragility of normalcy, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. As we delve into the details of this case, we'll examine not just the crime itself, but its impact on the community and the enduring questions it continues to raise. The DeFeo family seemed to embody the American dream. Ronald, the patriarch, was a successful car salesman, known for his sharp suits and booming voice. He provided well for his family, affording them a large colonial house in the affluent Amityville neighborhood. Neighbors described him as demanding and sometimes volatile, yet devoted to his family. Louise, his wife, was a beautiful woman, remembered for her elegant style and quiet nature. She doted on her children and seemed to be the calming influence in the household. Life revolved around their 5 children. Ronald Jr., known as Butch, the eldest; Dawn, a bright and popular teenager; Allison, artistic and sensitive; Mark, quiet and introspective; and John Matthew, the youngest, still a child, full of energy. They were a seemingly normal family, living in a seemingly normal community. Amityville, Long Island, in the early 1970s, was a picture of suburban tranquility. Large, well-maintained houses lined the streets, children played freely on manicured lawns, and neighbors knew each other. It was the kind of community where people left their doors unlocked and felt safe walking at night. The DeFeo house, 112 Ocean Avenue, a Dutch colonial, stood as a symbol of success and comfort. The family had only lived there for a few years, having moved from Brooklyn, but they seemed to fit right into the neighborhood. They hosted barbecues, attended church, and the children went to the local schools. No one suspected the darkness that simmered beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic family. Dawn, described as strikingly beautiful and academically gifted, was particularly well-liked. She was involved in school activities, had a close-knit group of friends, and dreamt of attending college. Butch, though sometimes troubled and prone to outbursts, was also known to have a charismatic side and a protective streak towards his siblings. The younger children, Allison, Mark, and John, were still finding their place in the community, but they were seen as sweet and innocent. The DeFeo children, along with many others in the neighborhood, attended St. Martin of Tours Catholic Church, a central hub of the community. The neighborhood itself had a strong sense of community. Block parties were common, neighbors helped each other with yard work, and children roamed freely from house to house. The scent of freshly cut grass and charcoal grills filled the air on summer evenings. The sound of children laughing and playing echoed through the streets. It was a place where families felt secure, a haven from the bustling city life just a short train ride away. The events of November 13, 1974, shattered this tranquility, leaving an indelible mark on Amityville. The DeFeo's seemingly ordinary life masked simmering tensions within the family. Ronald Sr. had a demanding personality, often clashing with Butch. Arguments between them were reportedly frequent and sometimes violent. There were whispers within the family of abuse and control, though these were never officially reported. Despite these undercurrents, the family presented a united front to the outside world. Their home was a gathering place for friends and family, and they participated actively in community events. It was this facade of normalcy that made the events of that November night so shocking. The seemingly perfect family, living in the perfect community, was ripped apart by violence. The beautiful colonial house, once a symbol of prosperity, became a scene of unimaginable horror. The quiet, tree-lined streets of Amityville were forever tainted by the bloodshed within the DeFeo home. The community that once felt so safe would now be known for a crime that defied comprehension. The impact of the murders rippled far beyond the immediate family. Neighbors were left in disbelief, grappling with the realization that such a horrific event could occur in their midst. The sense of security that had defined Amityville was shattered, replaced by fear and uncertainty. The story of the DeFeo family became a cautionary tale, a reminder that darkness can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic communities. The investigation into the DeFeo murders would uncover a complex web of family dynamics, unanswered questions, and lingering doubts. The idyllic image of the all-American family living in the quintessential suburban dream would be forever tarnished, replaced by the chilling reality of a family destroyed from within. The house at 112 Ocean Avenue would become synonymous with tragedy, its once welcoming facade a stark reminder of the horrors it concealed. The story of the DeFeo family serves as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can reside in the most unexpected places. We've established the DeFeo family seemed, outwardly, an ordinary suburban family. Ronald DeFeo Sr. was a successful car salesman, known for his temper, but also for providing well for his family. Louise, his wife, was described as a loving mother, dedicated to her 5 children. Neighbors recall barbecues, birthday parties, the usual suburban tableau. They lived in a large, comfortable home in Amityville, a seemingly idyllic Long Island community. This all paints a picture of a normal, if perhaps slightly volatile, family dynamic. But beneath the surface, as we often find in these cases, a darkness was brewing. We need to look closer at the days and weeks leading up to the murders to see if we can identify any specific triggers, any escalating tensions that might shed light on what was to come. Precisely. And while neighbors depicted a relatively normal family life, we have to consider the accounts of those closer to the family. Some relatives described a more strained relationship between Ronald Sr. and his eldest son, Ronnie Jr., often referred to as Butch. Butch, 23 at the time, was reportedly involved in drugs and had a history of erratic behavior. There were reports of conflicts, even physical altercations, between father and son. These accounts suggest a simmering tension within the family, particularly between Butch and his father. This tension, though seemingly commonplace in many families, takes on a more ominous tone when viewed through the lens of what happened on that November night. We need to examine this strained relationship more closely to determine if it played a significant role in the horrific events that unfolded. It's important to reconstruct the timeline leading up to the murders as meticulously as possible. On the surface, the evening of November 12th seemed unremarkable. Butch left work early, complaining of feeling unwell. Later that evening, he joined friends at a local bar, Henry's Bar, acting, according to witnesses, as though nothing was amiss. He even called the family home around 6:30 p.m., seemingly checking in. This seemingly ordinary behavior contrasts starkly with the horror that was about to unfold just a few hours later. It begs the question, what transpired between that seemingly normal phone call and the discovery of the murders? What changed? What snapped? The timeline certainly presents a chilling contrast. Butch's apparently calm demeanor throughout the evening makes the subsequent events all the more perplexing. After leaving Henry's Bar, Butch claimed he went home. Discovering the horrific scene around 3 a.m., he immediately drove back to the bar, frantically proclaiming that his family had been shot. This rapid shift from apparent normalcy to utter chaos demands scrutiny. Something drastically changed within a very short time frame. We need to carefully examine the evidence collected from the crime scene to try and piece together the missing pieces of this puzzle. The crime scene itself was horrific. All 6 family members were found lying in their beds, shot with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. The sheer brutality and efficiency of the killings suggest a level of rage and premeditation that is deeply disturbing. The positioning of the bodies, the number of shots fired, all these details paint a grim picture of what occurred inside that house. The methodical nature of the killings contradicts the image of a spontaneous act of violence. This points towards something more calculated, more sinister. Indeed, the methodical execution, coupled with the lack of forced entry, immediately raised suspicions towards someone within the family. The use of the family's own rifle further strengthens this theory. While there were initial speculations about potential mob involvement due to Ronald Sr.'s alleged connections, the evidence quickly began pointing towards Butch. The lack of signs of struggle from the victims adds another layer of complexity. Were they asleep and unaware? Or was there another factor at play that we haven't yet considered? We must return to that image of the seemingly ordinary family life in that Amityville home, the barbecues, the birthday parties. Now, overlay that image with the chilling reality of what transpired within those walls. That contrast is where the answers may lie. Somewhere in the seemingly mundane details of their lives, a shadow grew, a disruption in the ordinary. The contrast is stark and unsettling. Exactly. We need to delve deeper into those ordinary details, looking for the cracks, the subtle signs of the impending tragedy. Perhaps the answers lie not in the extraordinary, but in the seemingly unremarkable moments of their lives. It is within the ordinary that this shadow of violence took root and ultimately consumed the DeFeo family. We've laid out the DeFeo family background, their dynamics, and the seemingly idyllic life they presented to the outside world. Now, we delve into the horrific night of November 13th, 1973. It was a Wednesday, unremarkable in most respects. Ronald DeFeo Jr., or Butch as he was known, left work at his grandfather's Buick dealership around 4 p.m. His subsequent movements are somewhat unclear, but he claimed to have spent the evening at various bars, including Henry's Bar and the Amityville Lanes bowling alley. What is certain is that sometime during the early hours of the morning, a tragedy of unimaginable proportions unfolded within the walls of 112 Ocean Avenue. The timeline of that night is crucial, and it's something investigators painstakingly pieced together. Around 3 a.m., according to DeFeo's later confession, he woke up and felt compelled to act on something that had been building within him for some time. a deep-seated resentment towards his family, perhaps fueled by drug use, and a turbulent relationship with his father. He retrieved a .35 caliber Marlin lever-action rifle from his room, and systematically went from room to room, executing his parents and 4 younger siblings. The method was brutal and efficient, each victim shot once, most while they lay sleeping in their beds. The sheer calculated nature of the killings is truly chilling. Luis and Ronald DeFeo Jr. were found in their bed, both shot twice. Don, 18, Allison, 13, John Matthew, 9, and Mark, 12, were all found in their respective bedrooms, each killed with a single shot. The positioning of the bodies, the lack of signs of struggle, and the efficient use of the rifle all suggested a methodical and premeditated act, one carried out with a terrifying calmness. Indeed. And while DeFeo initially claimed to have no memory of the events, his story evolved throughout the investigation. He initially tried to pin the blame on a local mob hitman, Louis Fellini, a claim that was quickly dismissed due to lack of evidence and Fellini's alibi. The fact that all the victims were found lying face down also raises questions. Was it a deliberate act on the killer's part? Or did something happen after the initial shots were fired? These details, while disturbing, are vital pieces of the puzzle we are trying to assemble. Absolutely. And let's not forget the weapon itself. A .35 caliber Marlin rifle is a powerful firearm. It's not something easily concealed, and its discharge would create a significant noise. Yet, no neighbors reported hearing gunshots that night. This raises questions about how DeFeo managed to commit these 6 murders without alerting anyone in the surrounding area. Was it the depth of sleep, the layout of the house, or something else entirely? It's a perplexing detail. Furthermore, the absence of shell casings at the scene initially led investigators to believe a shotgun might have been used. It was only later that they realized the Marlin rifle ejects spent cartridges from the magazine tube, a feature that momentarily obscured the true nature of the weapon. This crucial piece of information solidified the connection between DeFeo and the murders. And the aftermath of the murders adds another layer of complexity to this already disturbing case. DeFeo's actions following the killings were strange, almost theatrical. He went to work as usual, feigning ignorance of the events at home. He contacted family friends, expressing concern about his parents not answering the phone. He even went to Henry's bar, acting as if nothing was amiss. His performance was ultimately unconvincing. His frantic behavior, coupled with the horrific discovery at 112 Ocean Avenue, quickly painted him as the prime suspect. He cracked under police questioning, confessing to the killings while uttering the chilling phrase, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop." It was a confession that would mark the beginning of a legal battle that would further unravel the disturbing truth behind the DeFeo family murders. The scene that greeted the first responders at 112 Ocean Avenue was nothing short of horrific. 6 members of the DeFeo family lay dead in their beds, each a victim of multiple shotgun blasts. The sheer brutality of the killings, coupled with the apparent lack of forced entry, immediately raised questions. It was a quiet, residential neighborhood, and no one reported hearing anything unusual in the hours leading up to the discovery of the bodies. The house itself, a large colonial, became a focal point of the investigation, its silent walls holding the secrets of that terrible night. The initial assessment suggested a swift and calculated attack, leaving investigators to grapple with the question of who could have committed such a heinous act and why. The community was understandably shaken, the idyllic image of suburban life shattered by the realization that such violence could erupt so close to home. The immediate aftermath was characterized by a palpable sense of fear and uncertainty that gripped the Amityville community. Neighbors were understandably terrified, questioning the safety of their own homes. The fact that the murders occurred in the seeming tranquility of the night, without any apparent disturbance or cries for help, heightened the sense of unease. The police presence in the area intensified, but the lack of any immediate leads only fueled the growing anxiety. Speculation ran rampant, with theories ranging from a targeted hit to a robbery gone wrong. However, the absence of any signs of forced entry and the seemingly methodical nature of the killings pointed towards a more disturbing possibility. Someone known to the family might be responsible. This thought sent chills down the spines of residents, who began to look at each other with suspicion. The close-knit community suddenly fractured by fear and mistrust. The crime scene itself offered few immediate answers. The positions of the bodies, all found in their beds, suggested the victims were asleep, or at least caught completely off guard. The type of weapon used, a .35 caliber Marlin lever-action rifle, indicated a degree of familiarity with firearms. The sheer number of shots fired, a total of 13, pointed to a level of rage, or perhaps a cold, calculated execution. The lack of any signs of struggle further complicated the picture, suggesting the killer either acted swiftly and silently, or had the element of surprise on their side. Every detail, from the placement of the spent cartridges to the trajectory of the bullets, became a crucial piece of the puzzle that investigators needed to assemble. The house itself became a silent testament to the horror, its stillness amplifying the gravity of the crime. As news of the murders spread, the idyllic image of Amityville began to crumble. The quiet suburban community, once considered a safe haven, was now the epicenter of a horrific crime. The media descended upon the town, eager to report on the unfolding tragedy. This intense scrutiny only added to the growing unease among residents. The DeFeo house became a morbid tourist attraction, drawing onlookers and further unsettling the neighborhood. The fear was palpable, with many residents opting to stay indoors, locking their doors and windows, haunted by the thought that a killer might still be at large. The community was grappling with the stark reality that even in seemingly peaceful neighborhoods, darkness could lurk just beneath the surface, shattering lives and leaving a trail of fear and uncertainty in its wake. The investigators meticulously documented every aspect of the crime scene. Photographs were taken, measurements were recorded, and every piece of potential evidence, no matter how seemingly insignificant, was carefully collected and preserved. The process was slow and painstaking, but essential to building a comprehensive understanding of the events that transpired that night. The absence of any obvious signs of a break-in remained a perplexing element, leading investigators to consider the possibility that the perpetrator might have been someone the family knew and trusted, someone who had access to the house. This theory, while unsettling, seemed to align with the apparent lack of struggle and the methodical nature of the killings. The investigation was entering a critical phase, with the need to establish a clear timeline of events and identify any potential witnesses becoming paramount. The days following the murders were filled with a heavy sense of dread in Amityville. The vibrant community was shrouded in a veil of fear and grief. The unanswered questions surrounding the case fueled rampant speculation, with rumors and theories spreading like wildfire. The media coverage, while necessary to inform the public, also contributed to the growing sense of unease. The constant replay of the crime scene footage and the interviews with shocked neighbors served as a constant reminder of the horrific event. The community was struggling to come to terms with the brutal reality of the murders, the knowledge that such violence could erupt in their midst, leaving an indelible scar on the collective psyche. The investigation began to focus on the surviving members of the DeFeo family, particularly Ronald DeFeo Jr., the eldest son. He was the one who had called the police, reporting the discovery of the bodies. His demeanor at the scene, coupled with inconsistencies in his initial account of the events, raised red flags for the investigators. His claim that he had been away from the house during the time of the murders needed to be thoroughly corroborated. The investigators began to scrutinize his movements, his relationships with the family members, and any potential motives he might have had. The focus on Ronald Jr. represented a significant shift in the investigation, narrowing the scope and intensifying the scrutiny on a single individual. The growing suspicion surrounding Ronald DeFeo Jr. further amplified the sense of unease in Amityville. The possibility that a family member could be responsible for such a horrific crime was almost too much to bear. The community watched with bated breath as the investigation unfolded, the line between suspicion and certainty becoming increasingly blurred. The image of the DeFeo house, once a symbol of suburban tranquility, now stood as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary families. The case had become a morbid fascination, a stark illustration of the fragility of life and the insidious nature of violence that could erupt even in the most unexpected of places. Let's delve deeper into the psychological profile of Ronald DeFeo Jr. On the surface, he appeared to be a relatively typical young man for the time, involved in the family business, driving a nice car, seemingly enjoying the perks of a comfortable middle-class life. However, beneath this veneer of normalcy, there were indications of a troubled individual grappling with inner demons. Reports from family and acquaintances paint a picture of a volatile personality, prone to outbursts of anger and erratic behavior. He had a history of drug use, particularly heroin and LSD, which could have exacerbated any pre-existing mental instability. This duality, the outward appearance of stability contrasted with the underlying turmoil, is a key element in understanding the potential motivations behind the horrific events of that night. The contrast raises questions about the extent to which his outward persona was a carefully constructed facade, masking a deeper, darker reality. Precisely. The discrepancies between his public image and private struggles form a crucial part of the puzzle. we need to examine the potential triggers that might have pushed him over the edge. His relationship with his father, Ronald DeFeo Jr., was reportedly strained and often characterized by conflict. Witnesses described the father as domineering and sometimes abusive, creating a tense atmosphere within the household. While this difficult family dynamic doesn't excuse the murders, it offers a glimpse into the pressures and resentments that might have been simmering beneath the surface. This turbulent home environment, combined with his substance abuse, could have contributed to a gradual deterioration of his mental state, potentially culminating in the violent outburst on that fateful November night. It's a complex interplay of factors that we must carefully consider. The fact that he initially claimed a mafia hitman was responsible further complicates the psychological picture. This attempt to deflect blame suggests a degree of awareness, at least initially, that his actions were wrong. However, his later confession, in which he claimed voices in the house compelled him to kill his family, introduces another layer of complexity. Was this a genuine delusion stemming from a severe mental illness, or a calculated attempt to plead insanity? The question of his mental state at the time of the murders remains a contentious point, and one that significantly impacted the legal proceedings that followed. The conflicting narratives he presented raised serious questions about his capacity for premeditation and his understanding of the consequences of his actions. The shifting narratives indeed add another layer of intrigue. His initial denial, followed by the claim of outside influence, and ultimately the confession, each presents a different perspective on his state of mind. One theory suggests he might have suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, a condition characterized by delusions and hallucinations. However, this diagnosis was disputed by other experts, who argued that his behavior was consistent with antisocial personality disorder, marked by a lack of empathy and disregard for the rights of others. Unraveling the truth amidst these conflicting diagnoses is essential to understanding the motivations behind this horrific crime. The challenge lies in determining whether he was truly driven by psychotic delusions or simply a remorseless individual seeking to evade responsibility. Let's consider the aftermath of the murders and his subsequent behavior. His actions immediately following the killings, including going to work and acting as if nothing had happened, seem incongruous with someone experiencing a psychotic break. This seemingly calm demeanor raises further questions about his mental state. Was he truly detached from reality, or was this a calculated attempt to maintain a facade of normalcy? His behavior in the days following the murders offers valuable insight into his psychological state and could provide clues as to the true nature of his motivations. Examining this period closely is vital to piecing together the puzzle of his personality and the factors that drove him to commit such a horrific act. Absolutely. His seemingly normal behavior following the murders is a chilling detail that warrants careful analysis. It contrasts sharply with the brutality of the crime itself, suggesting a remarkable capacity for compartmentalization. Some experts have speculated that this apparent disconnect could be indicative of a dissociative state, a psychological mechanism in which individuals detach from their emotions and experiences as a way of coping with overwhelming trauma. This theory, while not definitive, offers a possible explanation for his ability to function seemingly normally after committing such a heinous act. It highlights the complexity of the human psyche and the extraordinary lengths to which the mind can go to protect itself from the unbearable weight of guilt and remorse. The sheer brutality of the murders, the methodical way in which each family member was killed, also raises questions about the level of premeditation involved. While he claimed to have acted on impulse, driven by the voices, the systematic nature of the killing suggests a degree of planning. This apparent contradiction between his claims and the evidence at the scene makes it difficult to ascertain the true sequence of events and the extent to which his actions were premeditated. The level of violence exhibited also points to a profound rage and hostility, perhaps stemming from years of unresolved conflict and resentment within the family dynamic. The level of violence, the methodical execution, these are crucial elements that cannot be ignored. They suggest a level of anger and resentment that goes beyond a simple, impulsive act. Some psychologists have suggested that the killings could have been a manifestation of displaced aggression, where unresolved anger towards his father was redirected towards the entire family. This theory, while speculative, provides a possible framework for understanding the intensity of the violence and the choice of victims. The fact that each family member was shot while sleeping adds another layer of complexity to the psychological profile, raising questions about the potential symbolism behind this specific act. Let's delve into the complexities of the investigation. The initial chaos at the scene undoubtedly hampered evidence collection. Officers arriving at 112 Ocean Avenue were met with a horrific sight, and their primary focus was understandably on securing the scene and identifying the victims. In the early stages, crucial details might have been overlooked or misinterpreted due to the sheer scale of the tragedy. The initial assumption that the family had been silenced by mafia hitmen, fueled by Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s initial account, likely steered the investigation down a specific path, potentially delaying the exploration of other avenues. This misdirection could have resulted in missed opportunities to collect critical evidence related to the true perpetrator. Absolutely. The idea of a mafia hit, though seemingly plausible given the family's supposed connections, ultimately proved to be a red herring. This false lead consumed valuable investigative resources and time, diverting attention away from the real culprit within the DeFeo household. Furthermore, the lack of immediate forensic analysis further complicated the investigation. While standard procedure at the time, the absence of immediate and thorough forensic processing of the scene might have allowed crucial evidence to be compromised or lost. This oversight could have hindered the ability to establish a clear timeline of events and potentially identify the true sequence of the murders. The taunting phone calls received by the police added another layer of complexity to the case. While these calls were initially thought to be from a figure connected to organized crime, further investigation revealed no concrete links. These calls served primarily to mislead investigators and create a sense of fear and uncertainty around the case. They contributed to the overall confusion and further muddied the waters of an already complex investigation. This distraction, however brief, could have diverted attention from more promising leads. Precisely. The phantom caller injected an element of psychological warfare into the investigation, playing on the anxieties surrounding the case. While their true identity and motive remain unknown, their actions serve to further complicate an already perplexing situation. Another element to consider is the apparent lack of forced entry. This absence initially led investigators to believe that the family knew their assailant, reinforcing the theory of a targeted attack. This assumption, however, proved to be a double-edged sword, potentially narrowing the investigative focus prematurely. The initial absence of a clear suspect presented a significant challenge. Despite Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s erratic behavior and inconsistent statements, there was a lack of direct physical evidence linking him to the crime scene in the early stages. This absence of a definitive suspect created a sense of uncertainty and prolonged the investigative process. The focus on external threats, fueled by DeFeo's claims, delayed the full scrutiny of those closest to the victims. The subsequent discovery of the .35 caliber Marlin rifle and the spent cartridges marked a turning point in the investigation. The ballistics analysis definitively linked the weapon to the murders, providing a crucial piece of physical evidence. This discovery shifted the focus of the investigation toward those who had access to the rifle, including Ronald DeFeo Jr. The forensic evidence offered tangible proof, contrasting with the previous reliance on circumstantial evidence and speculation. The conflicting witness testimonies from neighbors and acquaintances further complicated matters. While some reported hearing noises on the night of the murders, others claimed to have heard nothing unusual. These inconsistencies made it challenging to establish a clear timeline of events and added to the ambiguity surrounding the case. The lack of a unified narrative from witnesses created a confusing picture of the events leading up to and following the murders. The investigation into the DeFeo murders was a complex tapestry woven with missed opportunities, false leads, and tantalizing pieces of evidence. The initial misdirection, coupled with the challenging circumstances surrounding the crime scene, undoubtedly created obstacles for investigators. The case highlights the importance of thorough forensic analysis, meticulous evidence collection, and the careful consideration of all potential leads, even those that initially appear unlikely. The psychological impact of the DeFeo murders on the Amityville community was profound and long-lasting. Imagine living in a seemingly idyllic suburban town where such a horrific act of violence shatters the perceived peace and security. Neighbors who knew the DeFeos, even casually, were left grappling with fear, disbelief, and a sense of vulnerability. The idea that such a brutal crime could happen so close to home, within a family, eroded the sense of safety and trust within the community. The idyllic facade of suburban life was irrevocably cracked, leaving a lingering sense of unease. This case became a dark stain on the town's history, forever altering its identity and the lives of its residents. The ripple effect of trauma extended far beyond the immediate community, impacting families across Long Island and beyond. The DeFeo murders became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the potential for violence lurking beneath the surface of seemingly normal lives. Parents held their children closer, questioning the safety of their own homes. The idyllic image of suburban life, once a symbol of comfort and security, was now tainted with suspicion and fear. The case resonated with a primal fear, forcing people to confront the uncomfortable reality that violence can erupt anywhere, anytime. shattering the illusion of safety and control. The collective trauma became embedded in the cultural consciousness, a haunting reminder of human fragility and the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary families. For the extended families of both Louise and Ronald DeFeo Sr., the grief was compounded by the sheer horror of the crime. Losing 6 family members in such a brutal manner is an unimaginable tragedy. The public nature of the case, the intense media scrutiny, and the subsequent paranormal speculation only intensified their pain. They had to mourn their loved ones while simultaneously navigating a media frenzy and dealing with the stigma attached to the case. The emotional toll was immense, leaving lasting scars on generations. It's impossible to fully comprehend the depth of their suffering and the long-term impact on their lives. The impact on law enforcement and first responders should not be overlooked. The officers who first arrived at the DeFeo house encountered a scene of unimaginable carnage. The emotional burden of witnessing such brutality can be profound, leading to post-traumatic stress and other psychological issues. These individuals are often left to process the trauma with limited support, carrying the weight of these horrific experiences long after the case is closed. We must recognize the silent suffering of those who bear witness to such violence and ensure they receive the necessary care and support. The enduring fascination with the Amityville Horror story, both the factual crime and the subsequent fictionalized accounts, speaks to our collective morbid curiosity. But amidst the sensationalism, it's crucial to remember the human tragedy at the heart of it all. 6 lives were brutally cut short, leaving behind a legacy of grief, trauma, and unanswered questions. While the paranormal aspects of the story may capture our imaginations, we must never lose sight of the real victims and the devastating impact on their families and community. The DeFeo case highlights the complexities of trauma and its far-reaching consequences. It's a stark reminder that the impact of violent crime extends far beyond the immediate victims, affecting families, communities, and even those tasked with investigating and responding to such tragedies. Understanding the depth and breadth of this impact is crucial for providing adequate support and resources to those affected, and for fostering a greater sense of empathy and understanding in society. The long-term unease that settled over Amityville following the murders is a testament to the enduring power of trauma. Even after the media attention faded and the house changed hands, a sense of disquiet remained. The house became a macabre landmark, a constant reminder of the horrific events that transpired within its walls. The very name Amityville became synonymous with horror, forever altering the town's identity and casting a long shadow over its history. The DeFeo case serves as a chilling example of how a single act of violence can irrevocably alter the fabric of a community. The trauma inflicted upon Amityville extended far beyond the physical boundaries of the DeFeo home, seeping into the collective consciousness of its residents and leaving an indelible mark on the town's history. It stands as a somber reminder of the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of unchecked violence. The seemingly impenetrable wall around Ronald DeFeo Jr. began to crumble under the weight of inconsistencies. His initial alibi, working the night shift at Buick and being unable to reach his family by phone, quickly unraveled. Investigators confirmed he had, in fact, left work early that day. More crucially, phone records revealed a call made from the DeFeo residence to his workplace shortly after the presumed time of the murders. This contradicted his claim of being unaware of the situation until the following morning. These discrepancies, though seemingly small, were the first cracks in his carefully constructed narrative. They signaled to investigators that Ronnie's story was far from the complete truth, and it prompted them to dig deeper into his whereabouts and actions on that fateful night. Adding to the mounting suspicion was Ronnie's demeanor during questioning. While outwardly displaying grief and shock, subtle inconsistencies in his account emerged. He claimed to have discovered the bodies upon returning from work, yet his recollection of specific details seemed oddly vague. His description of the scene didn't quite align with the physical evidence. This raised questions about whether he was truly recalling the events as a witness, or constructing a narrative based on information he already knew. The investigators, trained to observe even the slightest deviations in behavior and speech, began to suspect that Ronnie's performance of grief might be masking something far more sinister. The breakthrough came during a follow-up interrogation. After hours of questioning, Ronnie's composure finally broke. Under the pressure of the mounting evidence and the relentless probing of detectives, he altered his story. He claimed to have witnessed his father, Big Ronnie, commit the murders. He then stated he assisted in cleaning the crime scene out of fear. This new version, while dramatic, only raised further questions. It introduced an element of implausibility that contradicted the physical evidence, and the established timeline of the events. The investigators, however, now had a foothold, a shift in the narrative that allowed them to push further. This shift in Ronnie's narrative, claiming involvement after initially denying any knowledge, provided a critical opening for the investigators. They pressed him on specifics, challenging the logistics of his revised story. How could two individuals silently execute 6 people in their beds? Why was there no sign of struggle or defense wounds on the victims? The inconsistencies continued to multiply, further entangling Ronnie in a web of his own making. His attempt to deflect blame only served to incriminate him further, highlighting the implausibility of his claims and reinforcing the growing suspicion that he was the sole perpetrator. Finally, after hours of relentless questioning and mounting inconsistencies, Ronnie confessed. His confession, delivered in a detached, almost clinical manner, painted a chilling picture of the events of that night. He admitted to systematically killing each member of his family, one by one, with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. He detailed the order in which he shot them, the location of each victim, and his actions immediately following the murders. This confession, though horrific, provided a semblance of closure for investigators. It aligned with the physical evidence, the ballistic reports, and the overall timeline of the tragic events. With a confession secured, the arrest of Ronald DeFeo Jr. was swift and unceremonious. On November 14, 1974, he was taken into custody and charged with 6 counts of second-degree murder. The media descended upon Amityville, transforming the quiet suburban street into a spectacle of flashing lights and clamoring reporters. The story of the DeFeo murders, once a private tragedy, became a public obsession, fueled by the gruesome nature of the crime and the unsettling calmness of the confessed killer. The arrest, however, marked only the beginning of a long and complex legal process that would further dissect the motivations and the mind of Ronald DeFeo Jr. The arrest brought a sense of finality to the immediate investigation, but it also opened up a Pandora's box of questions. Why did a seemingly ordinary young man commit such a horrific act against his own family? What drove him to methodically execute his parents and siblings in the dead of night? These questions, central to understanding the full scope of the tragedy, would become the focus of the upcoming trial. The confession provided answers regarding the how, but the why remained elusive, shrouded in the complexities of Ronnie's psyche. As Ronald DeFeo Jr. was processed and prepared for his arraignment, the investigation shifted its focus. The physical evidence collected from the High Hopes residence was meticulously cataloged and analyzed. The .35 caliber Marlin rifle, the murder weapon, became a key piece of evidence, linking Ronnie directly to the crime. Investigators continued to piece together the events leading up to the murders, searching for any clues that might shed light on the motive behind this unimaginable act of violence. The arrest marked not the end, but a transition in the pursuit of justice for the DeFeo family. It's unsettling, isn't it, to consider that such darkness can reside within seemingly ordinary families. We've spent hours dissecting the DeFeo murders, examining the evidence, the timeline, the psychological profiles, and yet, a sense of incompleteness remains. We understand the how, the ballistic evidence, the shotgun blasts, the methodical execution, but the why continues to elude us. Was it solely Ronald DeFeo Jr. driven by unseen demons? Or were there other contributing factors, other pressures at play within the family dynamic that we haven't fully grasped? The chilling silence of the High Hopes house seems to hold its secrets tight, even after all these years. Precisely. We've explored the possibility of drug use, of occult influences, of underlying mental illness, yet no single theory fully explains the sheer brutality of the act. 6 lives extinguished in a matter of minutes, a family annihilated in the supposed sanctuary of their own home. The methodical nature of the killings, the lack of forced entry, the positioning of the bodies, all point to a premeditated act, a cold-blooded execution. And yet, the image of Ronald Jr. calmly ordering drinks at the local bar just hours after the murders clashes sharply with the image of a calculated killer. There's a dissonance there, a gap in our understanding that continues to haunt this case. The neighbors' accounts paint a picture of a seemingly normal suburban family, albeit one with its share of internal conflicts. There were reports of arguments, of tensions between Ronald Jr. and his father, but nothing that would foreshadow such an unspeakable tragedy. It's a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, that the facade of normalcy can conceal a festering darkness beneath. The events of that night shattered the illusion of safety and security, not just for the DeFeo family, but for the entire community of Amityville. And that sense of unease, that lingering suspicion, is perhaps the most enduring legacy of the DeFeo murders. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that evil can exist anywhere, hidden in plain sight, masked by the veneer of everyday life. The house at 112 Ocean Avenue became a symbol of that unsettling reality, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk within the human heart. The subsequent stories, the claims of paranormal activity, only serve to amplify the existing horror, blurring the lines between fact and fiction, further obscuring the truth beneath layers of speculation. We can analyze the evidence, we can reconstruct the timeline, but ultimately, we are left with the chilling realization that we may never fully comprehend the depths of human depravity. The DeFeo murders remain a stark and unsettling reminder of the capacity for evil that resides within us all, a darkness that can erupt unexpectedly, shattering lives and leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions. What truly transpired within the walls of that house on that fateful night may forever remain shrouded in mystery. The official narrative, the conviction of Ronald DeFeo Jr., provides a legal closure, but it does little to address the deeper questions that linger. The psychological complexities, the potential contributing factors, the sheer inexplicable brutality of the act continue to challenge our understanding of human behavior. It forces us to confront the limitations of our own perception, the uncomfortable possibility that some acts of violence may simply defy rational explanation. The DeFeo case, in its chilling ambiguity, remains a disturbing enigma. And so, the story of the DeFeo family ends not with a definitive answer, but with a lingering question, a question that echoes through the decades. A chilling testament to the enduring power of unanswered questions in true crime. What darkness truly took hold of Ronald DeFeo Jr. that night? And what secrets still lie buried within the walls of 112 Ocean Avenue? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of this case is its enduring relevance. Decades later, the DeFeo murders continue to captivate and horrify, a morbid reminder of the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary families, within seemingly ordinary homes. It serves as a cautionary tale, a chilling testament to the fact that the greatest mysteries often lie not in the who or the how, but in the elusive, unanswerable why. And that, perhaps, is the most terrifying aspect of all. Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant. Goodbye.